Welcome to Higher Intelligence, smart takes on AI for the next generation campus. I'm your host, JC Bonilla, EdTech executive, data scientist, and educator. Every episode, we break down what's really happening and matters at the intersection of AI and higher education. No hype, no fear, just a signal. Today, I'm tackling what's probably the most consequential idea I've encountered in years. It's not a product launch. It's not technical per se. It's not a benchmark of a model. It's actually a thesis. One that, if half right, could change how every institution in higher education thinks about itself, delivers education, and works with all of us. It is called intelligence placement, and I have the perfect guest to wrestle it with me. Welcome back, Paul Russo, friend, colleague, PhD candidate with me along many years ago, but today, Vice Provost and Dean of the Katz School of Science and Health at Yeshiva University. Paul, welcome back to Higher Intelligence. How are you doing today?
Hey, JC, good to see you. Good to see everyone out there. Thanks for having me. This is an important conversation.
It is an important one, and I think I'm appealing to three parts of your brain. The person who is going through all these fantastic changes in higher ed, to the higher education expert and leader that you represent. But number three, there's something here about your academic background that is really important as we start thinking about trust, as we start thinking about the important aspect of intelligence and things that we've done in the past. Anyway, so Paul, I want to start with something personal. A paper that we've both read and I share with you is called, it's a Trinity Research paper, 48 pages on what they're calling the 2028 Global Intelligence Crisis. We're going to unpack it alongside other news, and then we're going to come back to it and do a big drill down. So let me set the context here. Here's the most uncomfortable idea in technology today, right? Headline: human intelligence has been a rare input to the economy for all modern history. And we're now experiencing an unwinding of that premium. That is not a tweet. That's not a hot take. It's basically the premise of this 48-page research document, and is considered the most widely read financial research publication of the year. It has had incredible talk through, and it has created incredible ripple effects. But why is it that? Because for centuries, what we've made, the premise that humans, us as economic units of input, it is all grounded on intelligence. Our ability of humans to analyze, decide, create, persuade, coordinate, that was made us unique. And that capital, was abundant, right? Resources, in a way, could be subsidized. Technology improved slowly, and we humans adapted. But intelligence, oh boy, that factor couldn't be replicated at scale. So we paid ourselves, we promoted ourselves, we created structure, and today that has a premium. And the premise of this book is that there's an unwinding in this type of perfect storm, if you will, that we're going to come and unpack, where the premium started to decay. And machine intelligence, now competent and rapidly evolving, became the substitute for that intelligence. In other words, every institution that built, AI and deploy agents, whether financial institutions or labor markets or educational services, they start seeing how AI takes on this rare intelligence, replacing the human output and creating financial collapse. For higher education, a very interesting take. Why? Because we think about admissions, curriculum, credentials, placement, and all are predicated on the factor of human intelligence. We admit on human intelligence. We teach and create curriculum on the ability to create human intelligence. We value credentials, which are signaling human intelligence. But as such, it's really interesting. The premise of this paper is human intelligence and AI, specifically through the lens of agentic AI, could be a priority. Last thing I say about this paper that makes it interesting, this paper starts with basically a story that is written today, but play in June 2028. The paper is a scenario that basically showcases a really uncomfortable scenario 2 years from now, where white-collar unemployment has spiked, SaaS companies, software providers, have collapsed, municipal bond markets are under distress because income tax revenues have dried up, demonstrators are blockading and manifesting against the technology companies that we adore today, OpenAI, Anthropic, and Washington is gridlock with policy acts called the Transition Economy Act and the Share AI Prosperity. And the gut punch, to finalize my intro to this paper, it's summarized here. You're not reading this in June 2028. You actually read it in February 28. The S&P is nearly all-time highs. The negative feedback loops have not begun. The canary is still alive. So Paul, fascinating paper. Everyone who reads it, they take out an interesting take of, oh my gosh, what is this? So you read the paper. What's your gut reaction? Not the academic one, the real one, going to your first persona. How did you find yourself reacting to this paper? Nodding, pushing back? Talk to me.
So, look, there's clearly a disruption in the making, happening, looking forward. The timeline, I'm not sure I agree, right? You know, in my mind, I think S curves, not step function.
It was a little steppy function. Yeah, I agree.
Right. So I don't know, and I don't know what the slope of the S will be for disruption, right? But it's unique, and these are unique challenges, right? Because what we're really talking about is the disruption or the displacement of not just human work, not replacing assembly lines with robots, or not outsourcing certain human functions to lower cost economies where you could still compete on certain things, and it was a matter of just price differential, which you could make up on. What you're saying is the kind of stuff many of us do for a living all day long. If you remember that book, Thinking for a Living, right? You're saying, well, we can replace that. And that is scary. That is honestly scary. And some of it is definitely happening and more is going to happen. However, I'm not 100% sure it'll happen at the scope where it is, but there will be jobs displaced. And it is impacting how we work at university, and what our product looks like. We are in the deep throes of thinking, what should we be teaching?
We're going to have the opportunity to come back to this paper. It's literally the piece that center our conversation today. I'd like to tap on two things that you mentioned, the S-curve versus the step function that makes these accelerated timelines is where all commentary right now is leading towards to. The compute, and in a way, although we've seen technology go super fast, there's some limitations for these AGI, general intelligence, to be attained. One second thing, it's the perfect, connected to timelines, is the perfect storm, right? As agentic work displaces human tasks, white-collar jobs, or it doesn't matter. Humans traditionally, e-commerce, telephone, radio, internet, whatever has happened in the past, we humans have been apt to catch up, a rebound, reskill, rethink. But in this scenario that it was painted, it happened so fast that the humans, we didn't have a chance against this version of AI. So it's a really interesting concept of what ifs, and I'll leave you with this so you can start thinking about it. If half of it takes place, there's a really important shift that we have been hinting about. Well, what is a scarcity? What is a skill? And how do we start preparing towards that? So now let's do a shift, because this paper is not fully theoretical. Some of the headlines that we're starting to see this week hint at a life prediction, or directionally, it starts to show that this is happening. But again, is the timeline. And the headline that I want to bring up, story number 2, is that this February 26, it was labeled Black February for enterprise software. Enterprise software, in this case SaaS, companies like mine, Element, and many other gigantic companies. Salesforce is down 28%, Atlassian 35%, SAP down 15%, ServiceNow dropping 11 points in a single trading session. And the reason why this happened, it was a mechanism called seat compression. In the news, what we kind of figure out is a company starts to see that the pricing model that we use in SaaS, software enterprise or software as a service is licenses. So if I needed to buy 500 customer support seats, now I'm only buying 50. What happened to the remaining 450? Agentic work and AI is taking all this low-hanging fruit, automating workflows, allowing companies to have this productivity gain. So one AI agent performing the administrative workload of 10 or 15 million employees. That is happening today, specifically in some of these sectors. So the fundamental assumption of the SaaS area is that software needs human operators, and that is quietly collapsing. Hence, the reactions to markets. What does that mean for our listeners in terms of student information systems or learning management systems, or the things that we do, for instance, as CRMs or financial aid platforms? All of these are seed-based SaaS products. Paul, you probably have some of these in your tech stack, right? The question is not whether AI agents will compress the seats in the enterprise softwares. The question is whether your institution is driving that compression or whether the vendor that you're using will do it for you. Because the real savings are real. The real savings are real. Let me repeat that. And the disruption of the operation model is also real. So, Paul, interesting news from Dean and Vice Provost Dr. Russo. The CAT school runs on enterprise software, I'm pretty sure, right? Are you here in seat compression? Is the idea that AI agents replacing human users or tools, is that really happening in your hallways, or is that a distant conversation for you?
So let me say, I think this is one of those opportunities to go back what I raised in an earlier podcast, is that all universities are not monoliths. They come in scale, they come in scope. So for me, I'm not seeing seat compression. I'm seeing better customer service. I'm seeing students are more satisfied. I'm seeing less, oops, sorry that happened, I'll get back to you. And I'm seeing people more satisfied with their jobs. My issue in a small university with a very successful startup where my growth put incredible pressure on the university's infrastructure. What I'm seeing is relief on a lot of people's part. Now, my goal is not to replace people, but it is to give better service and to make people's jobs better. Where is this going to come in at? I think it's going to be over time when you start to think about large universities with large central operations that can think across systems. First place I would look where this kind of disruption might happen. More wealthy universities who have the capacity to make these strategic shifts will be the next place, right? But for now, products like this are, a relief for us. Really, it's serious. But I understand it's an angst in how I'm retooling curriculum to make sure my students are bulletproof. But from operations standpoint, this is a relief for what I believe most of us feel we are, under-resourced.
Yes, there's a ton of variability on academic institution, campuses, for years, colleges, community colleges, we know it. But there's something that you mentioned that I'm seeing across our portfolio element with 400 plus 400 schools, 1,000 schools. I wish, and it's that the recruiter, the advisor, today they're doing more their job. They're advising, they're recruiting because there's less time in creating the meeting or taking the notes to bring to the meeting, and all those type of repetitive tasks that support the role are being taken by AI, or AI is bringing basically that lift. And the second thing that you mentioned that again I'm seeing, and I love, Paul, it's being felt at the student outcomes level. The student experience is kind of what it's probably feeling it the most. And I just cannot tell you how much I adore that, because you and I have been doing this for quite some time. We know that at the end of the day, we do it. And the benevolence of higher education is that it's a student and the family that represented the mobility that we provide to them. Love that. Are you ready for a third story, or you want to stay here a bit more?
Let's go.
Let's move on. Okay. I want to transition out of SaaS, software as a service, to a story that is happening in the software layer, right? So our next story is about what's happening to the people layer. Mustafa Suleyman, probably one of the most incredible AI executives today. Mustafa Suleyman is the chief AI officer at Microsoft, the largest, or most valuable company in the world at the moment. Co-founded DeepMind. He built Inflection. Like, we're talking about probably if there's 5 people in the world who are top AI, he's in one that. Quote, within 18 months, AI will be capable of automating essentially all white-collar work. And end quote. Paul, this is not blue collar. This is not routine tasks. This is white-collar work. Hey, it's you and I. Are we, you and I, white collars? I don't know. In 18 months, he's not describing, this is not a speculative statement, by the way. He's not that type of person, right? He's describing a trajectory that systems that already exist and will scale to create this shift, right? Suleiman, he's a builder. He's not a forecaster. So he also has an incentive to make these claims. But one of the things that I just found with this statement is that it commingles with our Trinity paper that identifies 2027 as the year where AI makes this grab on professional jobs at scale, right? So what if, right? What if Suleiman is right, and what if the paper is right, and what does that mean to us in higher education? If Suleiman's direction is right, a student who starts a 4-year degree today graduates fundamentally different in the job market than the one that exists in right now, right? Who knows what's going to happen in 4 years? No one can predict that. Enrollment counselors, advisors, career service professionals, and faculty all need to be asking, what are we preparing students for? And how does that credential we're offering today still functions as an economic signal of value in the world that we're preparing to be? Paul, so turning to you, my friend, you lead a school actually of science and health. So you have these type of credentials in your curricular guide, but your field STEM is exposed, labeled as one of the most durable. Do you see shifts in faculty talking about this or students talking about this? Like, what's going to be my life in the next 18 months? What do you think? Is this an overstatement? Or is this actually, I don't know, campus hallway conversations?
Let me say, my whole business is based on what's my life, for students, what's my life going to be in the future? That is what we sell, promise and a future, and work hard to do a good job at it, right? So this is always part of that conversation. We're always looking at our curriculum to make sure it's up to date, forward-looking. In fact, I think our accreditors require and call it, assessment and continuous improvement. So we're there. We're with you. We're also just curious. But what I think we should go back and look at a little bit when we're trying to figure out what jobs are there is we're going to have to figure out what skills are going to be, what thinking skills and white-collar skills are going to be substituted or compressed with machines, and which ones are going to last, right? And if you just go back and think about the work about resource-based view of the firm, and really a knowledge-based view of the firm, what makes firms successful? How do they compete? Well, it's based on routines, know-how, specific skills, but the kind of know-how that's most valuable and most harder to repeat is tacit knowledge, and then building network and people skills, right? So if you take that model and you go to the front and you think routines, that's the ones that are at risk. Mechanics, processes, repetitive kinds of things. And then the problem is you'd be a little surprised what's a repetitive thing. Is a literature review repetitive? Kinda, right? Is running a regression repetitive? Kinda. But what the regression told us and the implications, well, that's different. Where the literature review leads us, those are not repetitive. So, but then the idea of what to do with them, being imaginative, creative, solving a problem, finding a problem, solving a problem, those are important skills. So I'm not going to diminish the tech skills and the work that they do. As technologists, they still need to be really good. They just don't have to do it all by hand. The real value will be the things we've always talked about, but even more so. Identifying a problem, solving it, being able to build a solution, and now just much faster. So again, my focus now in all we do in the high tech is more R&D, right? I don't make software developers.
Yes, of course. It tracks. There's a philosophical dilemma, right? Of are you paying and spending 4 years with us? Let me remove the graduate student experience to make the conversation simpler, right? You're spending 4 years with us in an academic institution, whether it's Yeshiva, New York University, or I don't know, community college in Alabama, to learn how to think, to learn how to problem solve, or is the philosophy and the ideology that I do certain parts of it and I pass that hot potato evolution to the workplace, and that's where I learn how to think or how to operate. I adhere to one of them, but I've been hearing this dilemma in both sides of the house. As an engineer, I'm not teaching you how to do differential equations. I'm teaching you how to think, so you can solve problems like that, right? Versus know the fundamentals, know it, and the employment will take you into this kind of first layer of, wins and failures and knowing how to be human and critical thinking and whatnot. Where are you at in that journey of the role of education and the credential, which is paid in this case, in doing fundamentally those things you just mentioned that are the hard skills that probably will make us successful in the future? So where are you at in that?
So I got past that a long time ago, meaning, the university as a place for learning some knowledge and to think, but I learned the real world on the job. That was gone a long time ago in our thinking and our education model. Google kind of did away with that years ago when in the interview process, if they give you a problem, they don't want you to write pseudocode. They said go in and solve the problem if you want to be hired here. So we adapted a long time ago. But what we have shifted to in everything we do is that people have to solve problems and build. We evaluate much more on what you build than what you can regurgitate, right? We work in teams. Now, this is not a pedagogy discussion. I'm trying to make a point here, is that students, they leave us and they can do things, and they can work with people, and they can solve problems. They are job ready. And so that's good for now. Now, what's going to happen as tools change, the specific jobs that many students would go for, that's going to be different. So, or a little different, or at least for the next number of years, they're going to have to harness a whole new set of tools. It's just different. But they have to leave, and I'm going to make a swap to something else in a minute. They have to leave job ready in our tech stack, in our tech skills. In the same way, when you finish our nursing school, when you finish our PA program, when you finish our rehabilitative medicine, our behavioral health programs, in the same way, you can't leave here without being tested not only on the medicine but the demonstration in a clinic, your people skills, professional skills, and those are all by demonstration. So for us, we do the same thing. We do the same thing on both sides of the house. It's you got to show what you can do before we let you out.
Under the lens of AI, right, there's something that it's happening that it's actually seen in our fourth story, where AI in its evolution, it's created an impact on entry-level jobs. So we recently saw computer science enrollment dropping down nationally, right? The field that everyone told students to go into, all of a sudden, we're starting to see 2026, the field that people told students to go to 4 years ago, in 2026, their job outlook, it's poor or fair, right? Worse than COVID, Paul. Half of bachelor's degrees graduates are unemployed. And we thought that these CS graduates, they were supposed to be the winners of AI, right? But somehow it's much lower, to your point, than the pharmacy grads or the criminal justice grads or biology grads, right? This displacement of intelligence is an interesting thesis, right? And the way I'm seeing it today through the lens of AI is that it's having a double whammy, right? On the entry-level jobs that the schools were preparing for, to your point, right? And we kind of generate these things, but all of a sudden, AI is doing the analysis, the coding, the reporting, the customer research. So the young professional doesn't have a chance. We cannot compete with a 24/7, always right type of engine and it doesn't allow me to kind of do the other half, right? I come in with problem solving skills, with all these wonderful things. What is happening? On the other side, then the prospective students who are watching all their peers struggle, specifically today with the job market, they ask a hard question about the ROI of a 4-year degree or good old institution and whether should they write a check. So do you find, although you already made the transition, and I just wonder how many people speak the way you are, Paul. Many of the deans and leaders that I work with are there with you. Some of them are not. So just wondering what do you make of all these signals, right? How the world of intelligence is changing and no longer. Let me finish with a question, right? Sure, you have assessment, but the assessment, I don't know how often are you assessed? Once a year? At the rate that we're in, the assessment should be placed in every month. This is way, way, way too fast. So are students and families already coming to the hallways at CATS, the school, your school, and asking about the education environment, the value of education? How are you experiencing this through the students and families?
Well, sure. I mean, again, students are always asking about how, what's my life going to be like? What opportunities are there for me? And families worry about that as well, right? But I'm agreeing with you that a lot of the entry-level jobs are going to shift, be different, and in fact, they are getting compressed. But what I was saying, and I'm not sure if I did a good job of being clear, I'm not just trying to create problem solving. I'm trying to create problem identifiers, people with imagination, creativity, to find solutions, to find problems that don't exist. And that is my good fortune to be a dean of a graduate school, right? And I think we want the same thing for our undergrad, so I have to be careful how I say it. But the point is, you got to build something to get out of here. You got to build something new, right? That's what my STEM fellowship is. That's what my STEM Fellows program is about. I have to remind me to tell you about the STEM Fellows program. And
Hey, Paul, can you tell me about the STEM Fellows program? I'm just joking.
Remind me. I have something, just good fortune fell our way again, and I want to share it with everybody. But again, the focus has to be on bigger ideas, things that will remain scarce. And that's something I think we need to clarify.
Well, let's use the opportunity to go back to our first reporting, right? So to build the narrative again, there's this story, this paper, and this is Trinity Research, that paints a picture of June 2028 as a doom picture where AI has taken over our premium called intelligence. And as AI takes over job automations in specific sectors, starting with software, and then it goes into finance, the displaced folk who comes out of those doesn't have the time to catch up, reinvent themselves, reskill, and AI just keeps on progressing to the point that also takes over the financial sectors. There's one example that actually takes over all the credit card transactions, financial systems collapse, policies are not at par. It's just basically global hysteria. So the argument is, and the theory of this paper is that the intelligence premium goes down because AI is now a competent substitute for the things that you just mentioned, that you're training against today. Cognitive work as humans, right? It's saying that it can be creative, problem solving, right? But that's, I guess, the premise of this, right? That are these the categories of human intelligence that you believe will remain genuine and irreplaceable, Paul? So let's have the conversation about where this is going and what we know makes you successful today. And congratulations, my friend, that you already have this program that makes you creative, problem solver. You're really putting out leaders. But the question is that the leadership skill that you just mentioned, these rare traits are changing. So what remain constant? What is irreplaceable? Let's have the conversation about what, if this is actually happening.
Well, let me ask you, what skills do you think remain safe?
I like what you said. There's something about critical thinking. There's something about tacit knowledge that is manifested on diagnose problems, understand this is an opportunity, and things of that sort. I think you said it nicely, but that's my summary. On top of that, the agentic framework is bringing today the opportunity for you to think of productivity and time to value very differently. Whatever took 2 weeks, now it could take 5 minutes. That is a very different value proposition. You need to work again. So the skill of time to value is important, which takes me to the other one, which is delegation. You are able to multi-thread, and that way to basically have one project end to end versus 3 or 4 at different stages is also a different skill. Last one, I would argue that is important. There's something about today, it's manifested as AI slop, right? It produces this garbage and you don't know what to do with it. It's too much. I don't like the output. But then the 11th mile of quality of work, where AI has done, the 10th miles, that last mile is the other thing. So the aspect of quality and the punch, the positioning remains super. Those are the ones. What do you think?
Look, I'm in line with you, and I want to make a distinction. I am saying imagination. I am looking at for problem identification, not problem solving. Problem solving with a frame problem might be mechanical, might be rote. There may be a structured rationale, almost like a literature review, if you will. Problem solving may be the result of a routine. That means the routine exists. But scientific discovery comes from imagination, the identifying of anomalies, things that aren't there. Now, if you're telling me we're at the artificial general intelligence phase where it's not just rationale and reason and processing, but finding what doesn't exist, I say, okay, I'll be with you. But no, I think right now we're not there. I think we're not at that point for agents to find what doesn't exist. But then you've got a lot more stuff. I think it gets more complicated. I think it gets more complicated for agents with judgment, right? Judgment on the ambiguity. It can run a number of routines. We might have a statistical result in a frame. That's fair. But when there's genuine uncertainty, completely undefined conditions where you walk in and you say, uh-oh, now what? Maybe that's a place. And then expertise that bridges physicality and sentiment and human behavior, right? I think that's going to be a next frontier, by the way, after just reasoning, it's emotion. I mean, we're doing great work in sentiment analysis and language, but that'll be the next thing we talk about.
The premise of the paper, we're staying on the diagnosis, and we'll go to institution in just a little bit so you can land that idea. But the diagnosis of this paper, right, is, as you said it, as the S-curve versus the step function, right? It just happens so fast that humans cannot catch up. So with that context, I want to take you to what you just mentioned about creativity, human ingenuity, like this aspect. So you may not agree with what I'm about to do, but there's a parallel to experience that I find that is highly correlated with creativity. So let me explain. As you become a professional and a manager, a leader, like you spend 10 years in an industry, the subset of problems that you solve get reduced. So it's not that you're creative. It's just that you've seen it before in your gut instinct professional experience, whatever you want to call it, turns on, and I know how to solve that problem because you've seen it before. So problem identification, the aspect of your creativity, it's highly ingrained in experience, AKA machine learning trainable AI at its best. Do you see that world that I kind of, as an executive today, Paul, I see myself that I need to be creative 2 out of 100 times, and the remaining 98 as an executive, I just done it before. I know how to solve it, and this is kind of how you guide the teams. Reactions.
I don't know. I don't disagree with you, but I don't think it's that might be the proportions. I'm creative twice out of 100. There are parallels one can get, but I think that the door is open to receive much more creativity. Creativity has much more of an impact, at least now. I'm not sure if I see algorithms that are solving problems in the way you just described. You've kind of predetermined, with that statement predetermines that an algorithm can handle it. I just disagree with your percentages. That's all.
Fine.
There's another thing where I think there's space.
Yeah.
At least for a while, interdisciplinarity, right? I don't know that we have the same kind of rationale across multiple spaces. And I'm just telling you, I don't know of machine learning algorithms that have been wildly successful with complex problems across different fields, right? That's just my experience. There's one more thing I want to add, friend. And if you could only figure out how to hire for this, but people who know how to finish stuff.
Well, actually, this is correlated to that trade of or rarity that is the 11th mile, right? So that is that last touch, finishing. There's a whole book called Execution, right? And an execution is about bringing it to the end goal.
Right. I know a lot of people can talk a lot, do a lot of work, and just never finish. Thank goodness I'm surrounded by people who that's kind of something we hire for.
Yeah, yeah. I like that one. All right. On a high note, because you know what I like about that's very human to finish. It's very, very human, right? Let's switch to the institutional response. What actually we are doing as academic institutions and the academic institutions that you represent, that you've worked for, and the ones that I actually represent in our portfolio company. So you as a dean, you have curriculum committees, faculty governance, accreditation requirements, budget constraints that work, right? The window for action is real, right? And the machinery moves slowly. That's one of the trademarks that I actually sometimes like. We just move at a good pace. Relative to others, it's slower. Is there a lever that you see today that you can pull that actually matters and goes there faster if this idea of time really kicks in, right? So what is the lever that you will be pulling right now if you think it matter? Should you need to accelerate? Good question. May you think. I like it.
You're right. This, and how do I answer this in a positive way? That's the hard part.
Oh my gosh.
Here.
I wonder where your brain went there.
we have structures in place that help keep us from doing stupid things. And those structures come with a natural inertia. It's built to be that way. But we're going to have to find a way to work within that structure. I don't know today if it's, consciousness raising or evangelizing or scaring the bejeebers out of people by showing them data, right? But we're going to have to be able to move fast. We're going to have to be able to dig into our curriculum and find out and identify those things that are, core hard skills, but also be clear in identifying where we're going to deliver those requirements that AI can't just displace, right? So maybe it's even a little different. Maybe it's finding how to harness AI to do good work, how to get the skills you need for the particular task, context, if you will, problems themselves, but also how to build in the skills that AI won't be able to replace. And what that'll do for us is it makes our students more job ready and AI proof, right? But you're going to have to, and then secondly, we're going to have to build a level of fluency across the institution. That's just a fact. And I don't mean a committee, I mean a larger sensibility across the university where everybody has some understanding, some share, some stake, is able to use where appropriate to embed AI in what they do. And then I think we need to look at, maybe we got to repackage, come up with new products, rethink our business models. Those things are important. But I'll stop this one by saying, to everybody who's listening, take a beat, take a breath. This is a change management process, right? It's not an event. It's a while. You got to bring along hearts and minds and skills.
Everybody, that's why Paul is having this commentary with me, because if you're listening to me, you would probably jump out of a bridge right now because oh no, I don't like this world. And Paul, thanks for saying that. I think it's really important for folk to contextualize what this means and how to approach it. Speaking of how to approach it, if I could be very high and wavy, right? Your tech stack as yeshiva or any academic institution can be generalized as three big things, right? The SIS, the LMS, and the CRM. There's a bunch of other endpoints, but at its core, these three things come together and define the institution, right? These three happen to be SaaS models, right? So seed base and with this compression seed business that we discussed. How do you see this, Paul? Do you see this as an operational threat or a budget opportunity or both?
Well, we sort of touched on that a little earlier. For schools like ours, I see it as a blessing. And I mean that in terms of our systems can work better, right? We're not looking to displace people. We just want systems to work better so students and faculty get better experience, right? People's jobs get more rewarding. We can handle more volume. So I'm not worried. I'm not that when you ask me that conversation about us, I am happy, right? But I also understand that if you take this concept and move it into other realms, that some people will be disaffected. So, but I think right now for schools like ours, these are good things.
3 personas. Let's switch to the human angle and the personal angle, one of your expertise. Student, faculty, and dean administrator, right? Someone who works in the school and has a responsibility within the school. So what do you say to them, right? To the student who is committing 4 years of her life at CATS or another school, the faculty member who right now it's managing a committee or creating a program today that is going to be kind of handling these signals or noise, and to the administrator, the leader who is responsible for the soft landing of the faculty and the student, if you will. So what do you say to these 3 people?
Well, for students, right, I think you just got to be honest, right? We've gone through upheavals. This upheaval is a bit of a pushback against one of the major things you traditionally leave a university with, certain know-how. And what I'd say is focus on those things, make sure you understand the core of your business, but make sure you understand the context, the core of your field, but the context of your field and the good it does and the impact it has. And when I'm on an admissions committee, I usually ask students a question, and it's early on, and most have no answer. But I ask, well, what problems do you want to solve? What would you enjoy getting up every morning and working on? And when you're that early on, I only hear things like, I want to learn Python and Hadoop if you know something, or I want to learn how to do ultrasound because I'm interested in MS and swallowing, right? But what I really tell them is think about what you want to work on and what you want to solve. And then we try to explain these same concepts and tell students what's going to matter is what you solve and what you build. We really are consistent from the interview process to the curriculum to the work we do, how we evaluate them. And look, knock wood, so far so good.
One more question on institutional response, so we can go into the human aspect. And this is a tricky one. I wonder if you can play the fifth if you wanted to, but if with this prognosis, right, that human intelligence will be displaced, if you were to write a job description for someone that you're hiring today, what does it sound like? So we touch on what the students need to do, and you spoke a little bit about finishing jobs, right? That's like the one skill. So can you elaborate on that job description? If you're writing that job description for someone you're going to hire, knowing that intelligent displacement, the era has started, what does it say?
Well, that is a great question, and I've sort of already done that not too long ago, and it's outdated. I did it probably 3 months ago, and I think it's a little outdated right now. And that was going to be my question for you, sir. But, okay, so what am I looking for? Clearly, expertise in whatever the area is. I want to make clear that too often we talk about transferable skills as being what we're hiring for. And I do not believe transferable skills alone are the solution for much of anything. I believe core job knowledge, core context, the tools, the tricks, the trade, the people in your field are critical. But then now I'm going to get to what I think you're asking me about. So imagination. problem identification, problem solving skills, intellectual curiosity to figure out what you don't know, the ability to work with others to build a team to get something done, and the ability to communicate, which is part of that, right? So you can be customer facing, team facing, work with your staff, and for goodness sakes, the ability to just get the job done.
Paul, thank you as always. You made me think harder, and I guess that's why you're here, right? That's exactly what we need in this show, and I appreciate you coming, and you'll be coming back again and again and again. Here's what I want to leave everybody with today. This Trinity paper is not a prediction doom. It's not saying higher education is over. It is saying that the premium we always earn from intelligence and the premium our students earn credentials for, they come to us, we diffuse through career services, we meet on, we teach against. It is changing structurally, maybe without reversal, and faster than most of us are prepared for. Paul just mentioned 3 months, a job description may have already evolved as of today. But the cannery is still alive, right? So we know that the window of impact, February 2026, right, is not June 2028. So this is not looking into 2 years out. We know also from the compute and the technical requirements, this may not be happening that fast, but it's not a crazy prediction in that sense, right? And whether we wait for this crisis to be realized or not, the point is, what are we doing today, right? So, Paul, before we sign off, anything else from you to end with? And again, thank you so much.
I like that last bit. You just asked the question, what are we doing today, right? And I think it's pretty straightforward. This semester, right, we are digging into curriculum. And again, that's part of a continuous process for us, but we have our marching orders from the field. We know the things we have to address. We are having a consciousness raising, because I told you this is the change management process. Faculty are out working. My deans and area directors, they're themselves digging out in the field, with advisory groups and so on, to figure out what it is we need to know, and being futuristic. And then finally, what we're doing today. And I am most proud of this. My thanks to the Katz family. Morty Katz, the person who had the idea and the inspiration for the Katz School, he would always say, the best investment I can do with the good fortune he has had in life, the best investment he could do with his money is to invest in other people and their education. And thanks to the Katz family again, we have a brand new opportunity here at the Katz School. Any one of our degrees, any STEM degree, start to finish, I don't care if it's 10 classes, 12 classes, 15 classes, it doesn't matter. Start to finish is $19,000 for domestic students. $19,000. I want you to sit with that for a minute at a top 100 private institution. $19,000 start to finish. So if it's a 2-year degree, that is less than $10,000 a year for a degree in AI, computer science, analytics, cybersecurity, biotech, media, right? These are the fields that we talked about feeling under pressure, but I push on that and say, we don't, in our education model, I feel like we're relatively safe because of the creativity, the embeddedness of building, being people who can produce an outcome, right? And at that price, I think we're setting up people for a bright future. And again, thanks to the Katz family for supporting that.
Thank you, Katz family. Thank you, Paul. And thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode. I'm JC Bonilla. This is Higher Intelligence, Smart Takes on AI for the Next Generation Campus. If this episode changed how you think about one of these assumptions that you love or don't love so much about your institution, share it with us. Share it with someone. Let's hear about it. And we'll see you on our next episode. Thank you, Paul. Thanks for listening to Higher Intelligence. This show is part of the Enrollify network, home to the largest collection of podcasts in higher education. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow. You can find more podcasts, webinars, videos, blogs, and more. Visit Enrollify.org and subscribe to get new content sent directly to your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the AI agent platform for higher education. Learn more at element451.com.